to be a certain way, or ask me to fix a situation, or ask me to share some information with them, or whatever. All these things to be able to fix our relationship.
There was a time when Kody Brown believed her role in life was already written. She was a wife. She was a mother. She was a sister wife. And for decades, that was enough. At least, that's what she told herself. But buried under layers of obedience, loyalty, and tradition, Kody carried questions. Silent questions. The kinds of questions that can cost a woman her family, her faith, and even her identity. And soon, those questions would erupt into a truth that could no longer be silenced. This was Kody Brown's awakening. Kody remembered what it felt like to walk into Robyn's house. The unspoken tension. The endless rules. Rules about knocking. Rules about waiting. Rules that screamed, "This isn't your home, this isn't your safe place." In her own home, Kody's doors were open. Anyone could come in. Anyone could feel welcome. Family, children, neighbors, it didn't matter. She lived by the belief that love should not require permission. But Robyn's home was different. You knocked. You waited. You earned entry. It was subtle, but it was suffocating. And for Kody, those moments were an omen. A symbol of everything that polygamy had become for her: rules without love. Control without warmth. Family without freedom. Music shifts, slightly darker. For years, Kody wore blinders. She told herself her safest role was simply being a mom. That if she poured all of her energy into her children, the rest would somehow make sense. But motherhood wasn't a mask, it was her shield. Her blinders kept her from seeing how broken things had become, from realizing that her marriage wasn't built on love, but on expectation. And then, everything changed. When her daughter, Isabel, needed major surgery, Kody was forced to confront something she had avoided her entire life: her own independence. Kody wasn't there. His attention was elsewhere. His loyalty had shifted. And Kody realized, if Isabel was going to be cared for, if her daughter was going to be protected, it was up to her. In that moment, Kody discovered something extraordinary: she could stand on her own. She didn't need Kody's approval. She didn't need the church's permission. She didn't need to wait at Robyn's doorstep for acceptance. She was capable. She was strong. She was independent. And once she tasted that independence, there was no going back. Music swells, hopeful, yet dramatic. Kody has since described that period as the spark that lit the fire of her new life. She has said the confidence she gained was like nothing she had ever known before. And in her words, she wishes it for every woman, especially those who find themselves facing divorce, even at 50. Because independence is not something given. It's something discovered. And Kody had finally found hers. But Kody's story isn't just about divorce. It isn't just about walking away from Kody Brown. It isn't even just about leaving the sister wives' household. No, Kody's story is about leaving behind the entire system that shaped her. And now, for the very first time, she is preparing to expose that system, to write a book that doesn't just tell her story, but uncovers the dark truths that were hidden behind the cameras, behind the smiles, behind the happy family TLC wanted the world to believe in. Hook, music slows, voice lowers. Because here's the shocking truth. While viewers at home believe Sister Wives was an innocent reality show about love, faith, and family, behind the curtain, Kody was being used as a mouthpiece for something far more dangerous. A church. A cult. A system designed to keep women obedient, men in power, and the truth hidden at all costs. And now, Kody Brown is ready to blow the lid off it all. When TLC first introduced the Brown family in 2010, Kody was painted as the cheerful one. The supportive one. The woman who laughed easily, embraced motherhood fully, and presented polygamy as joyful and fulfilling. But what audiences didn't know was that Kody's role wasn't just for television, it was by design. You see, the church that Christine belonged to, the Apostolic United Brethren, had a very specific strategy. They knew the world saw polygamy as oppressive, abusive, and cruel. They knew they needed a softer image. A face the public could trust. So they used women like Christine. They pushed them forward. They made them smile. They told them to say, "This is our choice. We are happy. This is freedom." And Christine did exactly that. Not because she wanted to deceive, but because she herself had been deceived. Raised in a system that told her polygamy was holy. That Joseph Smith was a prophet. That obedience was salvation. Christine wasn't lying. She was surviving. Music sharpens. But behind the scenes, the very church that held her in its grip was unraveling. During the years Sister Wives was airing, one of the AUB's most powerful leaders, Lynn Thompson, was accused of horrific crimes. His own daughter, Rosemary Williams, came forward with allegations of abuse. Other nieces, other children, also spoke out. And what did the church do? They silenced them. They scolded the women. They fired teachers who asked questions. They demanded loyalty oaths from members who remained. The truth wasn't just ignored, it was buried. And Christine, like so many others, became another woman driven over by the bus of patriarchy. A smiling face held up to the cameras while the rot beneath the surface spread deeper and darker. Hook, rising tension. Did viewers ever hear about this on Sister Wives? No. Instead, the Browns continued to insist, "We are nothing like Warren Jeffs. We are different. We are safe." But the truth Christine was living, was much closer to the nightmare of abuse than anyone wanted to admit. And now, Christine's book is set to reveal exactly how deep that nightmare went. This is not just a memoir of love lost. This is not just the story of a divorce. This is a declaration of war against the lies that kept Christine silent for decades. Her book, Sister Wife, a memoir of faith, family, and finding freedom, is scheduled for release on September 16, 2025. Published by Gallery Books, a subsidiary of Simon & Schuster, the memoir promises to be groundbreaking. And according to early listings, Christine isn't holding back. The synopsis reveals that Christine will not only share her personal journey, but also her decision to walk away from the Mormon Church itself, the very foundation of her family's faith, and the root of their polygamy. Music softens, thoughtful tone. Think about that for a moment. Christine Brown, once the smiling face of happy polygamy, is now publicly rejecting the very faith that made her who she was. She is saying, "I was wrong. I was deceived. I was trapped." And she is saying, "I found freedom." For the women still trapped in polygamy, Christine's voice could be revolutionary. For Kody and Robyn, it could be devastating. And for TLC, it could change everything. Hook, intense, foreboding. Because here's the catch, you don't get a book deal if everything you're going to say is already public knowledge. Which means Christine's memoir will contain revelations that no one has heard before. Dark truths that never made it to television. Secrets the Brown family fought to keep hidden. And stories that could finally shatter the illusion of Sister Wives forever. Music fades to a low hum, suspenseful. This is only the beginning. Because Christine's awakening is not just about leaving Kody. It's about dismantling an entire belief system, brick by brick. And as her book approaches, Christine Brown wasn't just born into polygamy. She was bred for it. Her lineage stretched back to Rulon Alred, one of the most powerful prophets of the Apostolic United Brethren, the same church her family followed. To outsiders, this connection seemed like royalty. Christine's family name was whispered with reverence. But the truth? Polygamy doesn't create royalty. It creates chaos. It creates dozens of wives, hundreds of children, and a web of power where women and children are disposable. Christine's father was one of Rulon's many children. And like so many men before him, he abandoned one wife to pursue another. Christine grew up in a world where women were interchangeable, where children were raised in crowded homes, and where love was not romantic, but transactional. And yet, Christine dreamed. She dreamed of a family. She dreamed of children. She dreamed of sisterhood. She wanted what every little girl wants: security, belonging, love. But in Christine's world, those things could only come one way, through polygamy. Music deepens, narration slows. By the time Christine met Kody Brown, her fate already seemed sealed. Kody was young, charismatic, blonde-haired, smiling, and full of energy. He painted a vision of family that seemed bright, exciting, and most importantly, different. When Christine became Kody's third wife in 1994, she truly believed she had found her happy ending. A husband, sister wives, a home filled with laughter. For Christine, it was the dream come true. But dreams have a way of twisting into nightmares. Because what Christine didn't know was that Kody's love would always be conditional. His affection would always be divided. His loyalty would always be fragile. And Christine would learn that in polygamy, you don't get chosen once. You must fight to be chosen every day. Hook, tense music. Still, Christine threw herself into the role she was expected to play. She became the cheerful wife, the supportive mother, the woman who smoothed over conflicts, who made jokes, who carried the emotional labor of keeping everyone happy. In short, Christine became the keep sweet wife. Keep sweet wasn't just a phrase. It was a command, one drilled into women in polygamy. Smile. Obey. Don't argue. Don't question. Never show anger. If you are suffering, hide it. If your husband rejects you, accept it. If your heart is breaking, keep sweet. Christine excelled at this role. She laughed when she wanted to cry. She comforted others when she herself felt abandoned. And she told the world she was happy, because that's what she was taught to do. But inside, Christine was dying. Music softens, a more sorrowful tone. When TLC came knocking in 2010, the Browns knew exactly what this show could mean. A chance to normalize polygamy. A chance to sanitize it. A chance to turn their lifestyle into something the public could accept. And Christine? She was the perfect face. She had the warmth. She had the humor. She had the ability to laugh off the hard moments. If Kody and Meri fought, Christine would lighten the mood. If Robyn cried, Christine would comfort her. Christine was, in many ways, the glue. But that glue came at a cost. Because while the cameras showed Christine's smile, they never showed the cracks. They never showed the nights she cried alone. They never showed how deeply she longed for love that was never returned. TLC wanted the world to see happy polygamy. Christine gave it to them. But the truth, her truth, was so much darker. Hook, music sharpens. Behind the scenes, the AUB was in turmoil. Its leader, Lynn Thompson, had been accused by his own daughter of sexual abuse. Other victims came forward with similar stories. And what did the church do? They silenced them. They exiled them. They demanded loyalty. The men in power remained in power. The women were told to stay silent, stay obedient, stay sweet. And all the while, Christine was unknowingly being used as the AUB's most powerful propaganda. Her cheerful presence on national television wasn't just for entertainment, it was a shield. It told the world, look. These women aren't abused. They're happy. They chose this life. It was a lie. And Christine was the lie's face. Music builds, ominous, suspenseful. Here is the part viewers never knew. Christine didn't join Sister Wives to expose abuse. She joined to defend polygamy. She joined because she believed it was her calling. She joined because she thought God wanted her to. But slowly, quietly, her own eyes began to open. She saw Kody's favoritism. She saw Robyn's manipulation. She saw her children pushed aside. She saw the hypocrisy of a man who preached unity but lived only for himself. And more than that, she began to see the cracks in her faith. Because how could God demand a life that felt like misery? How could God sanctify a marriage where love was conditional? How could God want women to stay silent while men destroyed them? Christine's belief system was crumbling. And she was terrified. Soft, reflective music. When you grow up in a faith like Christine's, leaving isn't just about changing churches. It's about losing everything. Your family. Your friends. Your identity. Your salvation. To question the AUB meant questioning her entire life. It meant betraying her parents, her siblings, her community. It meant stepping into the unknown, with no guarantee of belonging anywhere. That's why so many women stay. But Christine couldn't stay. Because deep down, she knew the truth: if she stayed, she would disappear. Not physically. But emotionally. Spiritually. The Christine who laughed, who dreamed, who loved, she would be gone. And one day, her children would look at her and see only a shell. That was not the legacy she wanted to leave. Hook, narrator's voice grows intense. And so, the woman who was raised to keep sweet began to whisper a new word. Freedom. It was just a whisper at first. A secret thought she barely allowed herself to say out loud. But once whispered, it grew louder. And louder. And louder. Until Christine could no longer ignore it. Music swells, triumphant yet tense. By the time Christine began questioning her faith, her marriage to Kody was already collapsing. Robyn had entered the family, and with her came new rules, new dynamics, and a tidal wave of favoritism. Christine watched as Kody doted on Robyn's children while neglecting his own. She watched as Robyn was given homes, money, and affection while she herself was left with scraps. And worst of all, she watched as her children suffered. Because polygamy isn't just hard on wives. It's brutal on kids. They learn quickly who is loved and who is ignored. They see which children get attention and which are left behind. They grow up knowing their father's love is conditional, just like their mother's marriage. Christine couldn't ignore that pain anymore. And Isabel's surgery, the moment Kody refused to show up for his daughter, was the breaking point. For Christine, that wasn't just a husband's betrayal. It was proof that the system itself was broken beyond repair. Music slows, somber, heavy. And so, piece by piece, Christine began dismantling the life she had once believed in. She stopped pretending her marriage was happy. She stopped defending Kody's choices. She stopped telling herself polygamy was holy. And slowly, for the first time in her life, Christine began to see herself not as a wife, not as a sister, not as a daughter of the AUB, but as Christine. A woman. An individual. A human being worthy of love, freedom, and truth. Hook music fades to silence, narrator pauses.
Just the knife in the kidneys over all these years!
Sorry.
I know what that line is from.
When Christine Brown walked away from Kody, most fans thought they understood why. They saw the years of neglect, the favoritism, the endless dismissals of her worth. But the truth is far more devastating. Christine wasn't just competing with another wife. She was competing with an empire of manipulation, a system where Robyn was crowned queen, and the rest were left to wither. Kody and Robyn, a new kingdom. From the moment Robyn entered the family, something shifted. Christine remembers it vividly. The sparkle in Kody's eye. The way he laughed louder around Robyn. The way his entire body language softened, warmed, and then hardened whenever he returned to his other wives. It was as if a switch had been flipped. Robyn wasn't just a wife. She was the favorite. But Christine knew it was more than love. Robyn brought something else, legitimacy. She had been carefully chosen by Kody to be the face of the family's new era on TLC. The sweet, younger, pliable wife who would help sell the dream of polygamy to a skeptical public. Narrator, and while Christine was carrying the weight of decades of loyalty, sacrifice, and childbirth, Robyn was being handed the crown. A crown that came at the cost of every other woman's dignity. The silencing of Christine for years, Christine had been the cheerful buffer in the family. The one who smiled when it hurt. The one who laughed to cover the sting of rejection. But with Robyn in the picture, that role was stripped away. Christine's voice wasn't just ignored, it was actively silenced. Whenever she spoke up, about finances, about parenting, about fairness, Kody dismissed her as jealous, bitter, or controlling. Her children noticed. Aspen, Mykelti, Paydon, Gwendolyn, Isabel, and truly saw their mother slowly shrinking under the weight of Kody's indifference. Narrator, somber. Imagine giving decades of your life to a man who will not look you in the eye. Who treats your needs as a burden. Who holds the sacred vow of plural marriage in one hand, while tightly clutching the love of one wife in the other. Christine was left to wonder, was she the problem? Or was she finally seeing the truth? Isabel's surgery, the breaking point. Then came the moment that shattered her last thread of loyalty. Her daughter Isabel needed spinal surgery. The stakes were high, her health, her future, her pain. Christine begged Kody to be there. To fly across the country. To stand at his daughter's side as she faced the most terrifying moment of her young life. But Kody refused. He told Isabel that traveling during the pandemic was too dangerous. That his presence would risk the family. Yet Christine knew the truth. Kody wasn't worried about safety. He was worried about Robyn. About leaving her. About the comfort of the household he had chosen to prioritize above all others. Narrator, angry, emotional, and so Isabel lay in a hospital bed, broken and stitched back together, while her father stayed home. Not because he couldn't come. But because he wouldn't. Because one wife mattered more than a daughter's pain. Christine was there. She held Isabel's hand, whispered prayers, wiped her tears. She watched her daughter suffer, and she watched her husband's absence cut deeper than any surgeon's scalpel ever could. That was the day Christine's heart broke beyond repair. The empty marriage bed. Christine began to see her marriage for what it was, a performance. Kody no longer shared her bed. No longer touched her hand. No longer spoke to her as a partner. When Christine confronted him, begging for honesty, he admitted it coldly. I'm not attracted to you. I don't want to be married to you anymore. Narrator, heavy pause. These words weren't just cruel. They were annihilating. After decades of loyalty, after children, after carrying the spiritual burden of plural marriage, Christine was cast aside like nothing. Like her value had expired. For Christine, this wasn't just rejection. It was revelation. Plural marriage wasn't sacred. It wasn't divine. It wasn't family. It was a system built to keep women loyal, obedient, and replaceable. The crown Robyn wore. Robyn, meanwhile, played her part. Tears for the cameras. Hand-wringing sympathy. But behind the scenes, Christine saw the truth. Robyn wasn't a victim. She was the enforcer of Kody's new kingdom. Every rule in her house became gospel. Every fear she had became law for the family. Kody followed her lead. And the other wives were expected to follow Kody. Christine realized something chilling. Robyn wasn't just the favorite wife. She was the gatekeeper of Kody's affection. Narrator, chilling, dramatic, and in that kingdom, Christine was invisible. Her children were invisible. Her love was invisible. The choice to walk away. Christine knew she had only two options: stay and die slowly in silence. Or leave and finally live. She chose life. The day she told Kody she was leaving, he didn't fight for her. He didn't cry. He didn't beg. He shrugged. He dismissed her. He turned back to Robyn. Narrator, and in that dismissal, Christine found freedom. Because if the man she had loved for decades could not fight for her, then he was never hers to begin with. The story of Christine Brown cannot be told without peering into the shadows of the world she came from. Because while the cameras on Sister Wives painted a colorful image of family dinners, birthday cakes, and quirky family rivalries, beneath the glossy surface lay the chilling truth. Christine was raised inside a system that thrived on control, silence, and unquestioned obedience. This wasn't just a family dynamic. It was a way of life. It was the culture of the AUB, the Apostolic United Brethren. A group Christine had once believed in so fiercely. A group she once called home. But now, years later, she was about to tear open the veil that had hidden their darkest secrets. The weight of loyalty growing up, Christine had been taught one unshakable truth: loyalty was everything. Loyalty to God. Loyalty to your husband. Loyalty to the principle. And above all, loyalty to the men who claimed authority over you. Christine carried this doctrine like a second skin. It seeped into her choices, her marriages, her sacrifices. Even when Kody humiliated her. Even when he dismissed her as not enough. Even when he told her flat out that he wasn't attracted to her. Her instinct was always to stay. Because that's what a good plural wife did. But in her silence, Christine's mind began to awaken. And what she started to see horrified her. Lynn Thompson, the prophet who fell for decades, the AUB had presented itself as a more moderate alternative to the notorious FLDS. Where Warren Jeffs ruled his followers with an iron fist, Lynn Thompson, the leader of the AUB, was marketed as softer, more balanced, more reasonable. But Christine knew better. Because behind the sermons and scriptures, Thompson's reign was marred by accusations so dark, they silenced even the most devoted members. Allegations of abuse. Stories of manipulation. Accounts of young girls coerced under the guise of obedience. And yet, within the walls of the AUB community, few dared to speak. Why? Because to challenge Thompson was to challenge the entire belief system. It meant risking eternal damnation. It meant losing family. It meant exile. So the silence continued. Even when the whispers grew louder. Even when the truth could no longer be denied. TLC's silence, and here's where the story takes a darker turn. While Christine, Janelle, Meri, and even Kody carried the weight of this community on their shoulders, the cameras of TLC rolled on. Millions tuned in every week, fascinated by the idea of a modern plural family. But what wasn't shown? The ties to the AUB. The connection to Lynn Thompson. The knowledge that the very system Christine was escaping from had been accused of harboring abuse, silence, and systemic corruption. TLC wanted a show about quirky family dynamics, not about cult-like structures. They wanted entertainment, not controversy. So they never aired it. They never dug deeper. They never told the truth. And for Christine, this silence became unbearable. Because how could she continue to smile on screen when she knew the foundations of her faith were crumbling behind the scenes? Christine's breaking point by the late 2010s, Christine was watching her world unravel. She was watching her daughter Isabel beg Kody to come to her surgery, only to be dismissed. She was watching Janelle's sons slowly detach from their father, realizing favoritism was the only language Kody understood. She was watching Meri wither under years of rejection and manipulation. And yet, while all of this played out on screen, another war was raging inside Christine's soul. Because now she was starting to question not just Kody. Not just Robyn. But the entire system. What if polygamy itself was the problem? What if the principle wasn't divine at all, but just a tool of control? What if everything she had sacrificed her youth for was a lie? These weren't small questions. They were shattering. And once Christine started asking them, there was no turning back. The mirror of AUB. As Christine pulled away from Kody, she began to see his behavior for what it truly was, a reflection of the AUB's leadership. Kody's demands for loyalty. His obsession with obedience. His ability to dismiss women's voices with a single shrug. It was the same pattern that had defined Lynn Thompson's rule. Different man. Same system. Same sickness. For Christine, this realization was both devastating and liberating. Because it meant Kody wasn't unique. He wasn't some divine husband destined to lead her to heaven. He was just another man who had been given unchecked power. And Christine was done submitting to it. The courage to question, but here's what made Christine different from so many others who had been raised in the AUB, she had the courage to question. She didn't just whisper doubts behind closed doors. She didn't bury her fears beneath scriptures. She spoke them. Out loud. On camera. In interviews. In conversations with her children. And soon, in a book that promised to expose everything. This was more than rebellion. This was survival. Christine wasn't just leaving Kody. She wasn't just leaving polygamy. She was leaving behind the entire culture of silence that had defined her life. Hooks for the next chapter, and this is where the story takes its most dangerous turn. Because when Christine left the AUB, she wasn't just walking away quietly. She was walking out with the truth. And she was ready to tell it. The question now was, would the world listen? Would TLC finally acknowledge the darkness they had hidden from fans for years? And most importantly, what secrets was Christine about to reveal that could dismantle everything we thought we knew about sister wives?